does that happen to you? That was a slap on the wrist from a £90 U longbow. It shouldn't really happen. If I had good technique, I'd never ever get a slap on the wrist. This, a leather bracer, is what I would normally wear on my forearm when I'm using a bow. It slides on nice and easily, and if I did get a string slap, the string would just glance off. This one is 2 years old now, so I thought I'd make a new one and bring you along to show you how I do it. Okay, let's start work on this bracer. So these are the tools and materials I'll be using to make this bracer. Firstly, this is veg tanned leather. It's 32 by 20 centimetres and 2.5mm thick. This is 3mm leather thong, a wooden toggle. You could make one of these yourself if you wished. These are 4mm eyelets, and this is the tool to strike the eyelets into the leather. And this is a leather punch, 4mm, and a rotary cutter and a hammer. I like my leather bracer to cover the whole forearm from wrist to here. The first job then is to measure the circumference of the wrist here and the widest part of the forearm here. The next stage is to transfer all those dimensions onto the leather. This is the finished side of the leather. I'll put all the marks on the back. First, I'll mark the centre line of the leather. The circumference of my wrist is 19 centimetres, so I'll measure 9.5 centimetres either side of this centre line. The widest part of my forearm is 32 centimetres in circumference, which is virtually the width of this piece of leather. So I'll mark at each corner. Next, I join these two marks with a line. I've gone over the lines with a thick black marker pen. Those thick lines are the ones that I'll be cutting along next. I'll use the rotary cutter now to cut along those lines using a steel rule as a guide. This is now the basic outline of the bracer. On my original bracer, you can see that I shaped the cuff here and put a radius on each of the corners and shaped this area. I shaped the cuff to allow my hand to bend back like this. To do this, I marked 15mm in from the edge of the cuff. Then I drew lines from the corners of the cuff to that mark. I then measured 15mm down from the widest part of the bracer and drew lines there too. I then used a wire bobbin to draw a radius on each corner. I drew the radius for the cuff and the back of the bracer by hand. Once again, I used the rotary cutter. Next, I mark a 10mm guideline along the edge of the bracer This will be the centre line for the lace holes. I have 5 lace holes on either side of the bracer, and the first one is in the centre of that dimension there, and then each hole is 40mm from that centre mark. Once again, for clarity, I've overmarked the holes with a thick felt tip marker. To make the holes, you can use an adjustable leather punch like this, or one of these, which you simply hit with a hammer and it punches a hole in the leather. These are the 4mm lace eyelets. They come in 2 parts. This is the piece that you'll see. This piece is riveted on the back. So that's the basic bracer now done. It can be laced and used right away. But I'll be using this with a bow around about 90 pounds in draw weight. So what I'm going to do is put an extra layer of leather on the inside to make it a lot thicker. So now all I've got to do is lace this bracer and use it. So that's my new arm bracer. All that remains to do now is test it.